Everyone probably knows a guy named Kevin Costner. In the early 90s, Kevin Costner was a top-tier actor. Actually, not just that. He was the highest-grossing Hollywood actor at the time. No one was above him. Even stars like Schwarzenegger and Bruce Willis quietly envied him. Studios were willing to provide any budget for Costner, and every director wanted him in their project because his presence guaranteed high box office returns and excellent publicity for the film. However, in the mid-90s, Kevin got obsessed with the post-apocalyptic genre. Being a big deal, he easily secured an insane budget for the film Waterworld. The film flopped spectacularly, severely shaking Costner's status as a box office star. This should have been a wake-up call for Kevin. To stop, take a breath, pray to all known gods, and forget about his own version of Mad Max. But when you've soared so high, it's easy to blame everyone else but yourself for the failure of a big-budget film. Convinced that the failure of Waterworld was due to someone else, perhaps even fate, Costner decided to make another post-apocalyptic movie. But this time, he would direct it himself. Costner based the film on the novel The Postman by American author David Brin, which had received several literary awards in the mid-80s as the best science fiction novel. Of course, no one was willing to give Kevin the same budget he had for Waterworld. However, after running around Hollywood, he managed to secure support from Warner Brothers, which provided $80 million for the project. For comparison, the budgets of The Fifth Element and Men in Black, which were released around the same time as The Postman, were $90 million each. Although this amount didn't allow for the same sprawling excess as Waterworld, it still qualified the movie as a blockbuster by mid-90s standards. Adjusting for inflation, $80 million in 1997 would be equivalent to about $130 million today, on par with films like Oblivion with Tom Cruise or Ant-Man from Marvel, which had budgets of $120 to $130 million in recent years. However, Costner didn't want a typical blockbuster. He saw The Postman as a film that excelled in atmosphere and drama, which he intended to emphasize. Why such a hefty budget was necessary for a film focused on atmosphere and drama remains a rhetorical question. For example, The Road with Viggo Mortensen, which also emphasized drama in a post-apocalyptic setting, only cost $25 million. Remembering his excesses during the filming of Waterworld, Costner didn't rent an expensive villa for himself this time, and instead opted for a small house he rented from a local farmer named John. The rest of the crew was similarly housed since there were no hotels in the area capable of accommodating everyone. Many people working on the film rented rooms and guest houses from the locals. It would be easy to say that Costner learned from his past mistakes and decided to cut costs on The Postman. But that's not entirely true. While saving money in some areas, Costner splurged in others. In Arizona, where the first third of the movie was filmed, Costner built the largest film set in Hollywood history at the time. It was only a few years later that the creators of the film The Alamo took the record. Incidentally, The Alamo flopped even harder than The Postman. Engineers hired by the studio constructed a massive Bethlehem camp in an open mine over 500 meters deep, all for 20 minutes of film where Kevin Costner undergoes military training. It didn't stop there. Costner constantly clashed with Tricia Ashford, who was in charge of the film's visual aspects. Ashford insisted that many scenes Costner envisioned could be done more cheaply and practically using special effects. Costner, however, believed that no special effects could replace reality. As a result, a month before filming ended, Costner fired Ashford and hired David Negron, who agreed with all of Costner's ideas. It's worth clarifying that Ashford wasn't pushing for computer-generated horses, hordes of mutants, or atomic explosions. She was talking about basic fixes, like removing the glass from the windows of local residents' houses in the town of Medellin during post-production instead of smashing all the windows for real. After firing Ashford, Costner went ahead and broke all the windows in town, of course compensating the residents for the inconvenience. After filming several scenes, a construction crew was hired to repair all the homes that appeared in the movie. To top it off, the town was covered in dirt and gravel to give it an abandoned, desolate look, costing the movie several $1 million. Because of these actions, the film lost one of its major action scenes which simply didn't fit into the budget. Ironically, this was the only big action sequence in the Postman script. The crew gave the movie the unofficial nickname Dirt World, a play on Waterworld. This name quickly made its way into the news, which of course didn't help the film's promotional campaign. Costner flew into a rage whenever he heard this nickname and threatened to fire anyone who said it in his presence. David Brin, the author of the novel The Postman, was fully on Costner's side, often emphasizing in interviews how glad he was that The Postman wouldn't be another Mad Max or Waterworld. Brin considered those types of movies to be for children, while The Postman was meant to be serious, tragic science fiction. It's said that Brin's wife saw Costner in the role of The Postman as early as 1989, and after Dances with Wolves, she was even more convinced. Brin himself was thrilled when Costner took on The Postman. Another controversial decision by Costner was his desire to push for an R rating for the movie. Warner Brothers executives resisted for a long time, but when it became clear that trimming the film down to a PG-13 rating was impossible, they relented. The film's December 1997 premiere was a disaster. Everyone called it Dirt World. The massive flop in American theaters was compounded by 5 Golden Raspberry Awards, including Worst Picture, Worst Actor, and Worst Director. The average critic score dropped below 4 out of 10. Despite the $80 million budget, the studio only recouped $17 million from box office sales. Costner had another contract with Warner Brothers to star in the expensive drama Message in a Bottle. That film could have saved Sinking Kevin, but it too flopped, albeit less spectacularly than The Postman. After that, no one was willing to give Costner big budgets for his ideas. In 2003, Costner tried to make a comeback with another Western, once again taking the director's chair. While Open Range made some money and wasn't a failure, it didn't achieve the success of Dances with Wolves, the film that had led to Waterworld and The Postman. Thank you for your attention.